Welcome to Under the Fig Tree podcast. In today's episode, hosts Reverend Micah Glenn and Reverend Dr. Ben Haupt talk theology and life as they meditate under the fig tree.
What's up? Welcome back to another episode of Under the Fig Tree podcast. I am your host, Reverend Micah Glenn, Director of Recruitment here at Concordia I'm not going to do it again. Concordia Seminary, joined by my highly esteemed, highly beloved co-host, Reverend Dr. Okay, we are going to do this again, sorry.
Oh, come on.
I was so close.
I feel like we should just keep on recording. We just keep our bloopers in.
Fine. All right. Listen, you know me.
Welcome to the podcast.
No shame in my game. Reverend Dr. Men. See,
my
I just
name
can't
is
do it.
Ben Haupt. Hi. Good to be with you.
The thing is I keep wanting to insert a guess your middle name. And I'm like, exactly.
And
so
you're blanking. But didn't you figure it out?
I did. I was going to keep a secret.
Oh.
I do know it. I was going to say Ben Daquan today.
Ooh, I like that.
It's not Daquan.
I might change my name. I could go for that.
But we'll keep guessing together. I do know it, but maybe one day I'll throw you a bone and tell you the real middle name of Dr. Haupt.
I think it is on my driver's license.
Is it?
Probably.
Yeah, but it's not something I don't think people can get like general access to. It's pretty difficult to get somebody's information like that. At least, I like to pretend.
I'm pretty sure that it's out there.
It has to be. You can
in the
Google
wild.
anybody these days.
Hey, we have a guest.
We do.
And we should introduce him.
Yep. Today we're joined with fourth-year seminarian Alan Doss. I almost called you Reverend. I almost called you Doctor.
Hello.
Soon. How are you, bro?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Great.
Yeah.
So good to have you on the podcast. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Alan, you're a fourth-year seminarian. You're not our first fourth year recently. No? You could be, which means last year you did a vicarage.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know. Oh, no, because we had Sam on last week.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, so tell us a little bit about your last year and then leading up into your final year and how it's all shaping out.
Yeah, it's been an interesting transition coming back. Just going through a whole year of doing ministry, learning many new things, new challenges that came up along the way, but all very exciting.
Sure.
And so just coming back and going back into the classroom, it's been very humbling, just realizing that you're still learning, and there's still a lot more to do before we get our official call. So I'm thankful for this, though. It's been a time of rest also.
Oh, sure.
Somewhere around there.
Isn't that the case? I experienced that after vicarage, where I had spent a full year pouring everything that I had into people, that coming back to the seminary was like, oh, it's kind of nice for somebody else to stand up in front and to talk, and I can just be poured into rather than being the one to pour into others. And there are drawbacks to coming back to seminary. Obviously, you didn't come to seminary to be in seminary for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You got to do what you love. Tell our viewers and listeners where vicarage was, what the congregation was like.
Sure. My vicarage was at St. John, Dublin, Lutheran Church in
Ireland.
Yeah.
In Ireland, yes. They're that huge group of Lutherans in Ireland, you know.
Yeah,
So
Dublin,
many.
Ohio.
Ohio.
Yeah, about 20 minutes outside of Columbus.
Sure.
Wonderful congregation. I cannot say enough how great the people are at that congregation. They are so loving. They're so caring. They're very missional. They want to do so much in the community. And just the environment, they created this welcoming environment that whoever comes through those doors, they're just loved and welcomed, and you belong there. And it was great to see that.
Yeah.
Really refreshing to see that. And when I came into the congregation, I was a little worried about that, just because I don't look like the typical Lutheran seminarian.
No.
But it was, I was greeted with so much warmth, and that was that moment where I felt, yeah, this is going to be a very good year, and it's going to be a great place to learn. So I had that experience. My supervisor is Pastor Adam Steinbrenner.
Classmate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful,
great guy.
wonderful
He's a great
supervisor. Just very wise and very patient.
Nice.
He really cares about each vicar, and he adapts himself, to each vicar. And so when I got there, I do realize the task was a little bit different for him, and he knew that, and we talked about it, and he really, really worked with me. And I had some difficult moments, and I found myself in his office, and he just said, "No, keep on going."
Nice.
He really pushed me to step out of my comfort zone, try new things.
Yeah. Did you guys have a Groundhog Day party when you were there?
No.
No? When we were in class, like, he always had a Groundhog Day party.
A Groundhog Day party.
Everybody likes their different holidays.
There were some classmates in my class that had a Groundhog party too. They wanted to celebrate. They love liturgy, the church history, church year, and so they celebrate it as Candlemas, which is
is that
the origin of Groundhog Day?
Is it?
Somehow? I don't know. Mark Burkholz, if you're out there listening, you'll have to remind us again of the connection between Candlemas and Groundhog's Day.
Maybe that's what
I'm not sure.
Adam also is doing.
Could be.
It could have
be.
just been
A long
Groundhog Day. Great
long
movie.
heritage.
But also a good friend of ours, Dahlia,
Yep.
is a deaconess at that congregation as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know because Dorothy's been to Dublin several times. I don't know if she's ever been there on a Sunday and gone to church with Dahlia. I imagine she must have at some point. But yeah. When we heard, Alan, I don't know you well because you came here during COVID and all the other stuff. But I was excited for you, knowing Adam, knowing Dahlia, to have a vicarage in that place. I don't know much about Dublin. I know a little bit about Columbus. But yeah, just kind of, friends talking. So yeah, it was great to hear. And I'm glad that I think everybody has like a moment in vicarage maybe, right? Because most of the time it's a new setting. I think part of like vicarage placement is trying to put you somewhere that's going to challenge you a little bit. Or you just, and maybe it's early on, maybe it's down the road, where just something happens and you just like stop and think, and you're like, man, can I do this stuff? And having a supervisor there that can sit down and talk to you about it, walk you through it, and say, yeah, it's going to be all right is a good thing.
So, Alan, I want to talk a little bit about your path to the seminary. You alluded to, for those of our audience or crew that are watching this, they're seeing you, but we have a lot of listeners too, who are listening and who can't see what you were alluding to earlier, that you don't look like maybe the typical or the historical student at the seminary here at St. Louis. So tell us a little bit about your background, your family of origin, your ethnic heritage, and then take us a little bit from there into what led you to want to become a seminarian.
Sure, yeah. So my family and I came in 1996 from New Delhi, India. My father is a pastor, and he, not Lutheran at the time, but he came for further theological education. And so along with him, my mom, myself, we came. So I was a month old when we came to the United States. And so we came, stayed in New York City. And so that's where my family currently lives right now. Just grew up there. My father was doing his independent ministry, and at that time he came into contact with a Lutheran pastor, which eventually became my senior pastor. And we got to know the Lutheran Church, and it was around 2007, I think, when we became fully part of the Lutheran Church. Okay. And so I grew up, got baptized right away, and so I remember my baptism. I was 10 years old when I got baptized, and then went through the confirmation process, just the usual stuff. I think what was unique about my confirmation was during that time, being part of the Atlantic District, they had an initiative called Youth Ablaze, which was working with sister churches together. And so instead of having maybe 5 in your confirmation class, now you have 50.
Yeah.
With so many different youth all together. And they would each congregation would host, like once a month, they would host this Youth Ablaze program. And so part of it was teaching confirmation, the typical 3 years. But it was also just raising up leaders. It was the youth ministry. And so part of our confirmation was constantly doing something with our congregations. And so either you're helping in some part of the worship service, or you're helping in other ways and volunteering and doing other things. And I just thought that was a wonderful program. I became active in it right away. And that was the initial stages of kind of my interest in ministry. But I did not think about ministry at that time, even though being a pastor's kid, you're around it all the time. But for a moment, I did not think about doing this full time. I actually, when I started college, I was studying IT. I was studying computer information systems, and I was thinking of doing, going into the IT world and getting a nice job, and everything will be good.
Sure.
And but when you get to college, you get to see many different people.
Yeah.
And so New York City is already diverse. You already have that around you, but you get to dialogue more in college. And so there were these, what I noticed in the college, I went to a community college there, and what I noticed was there were different faith clubs.
Right.
And sometimes they would get together and have dialogue together. And so you would have the Christian dialoguing with a Muslim student, or you would have a Hindu or a Buddhist or even atheists or whatever you were. And they were healthy conversations.
Yeah.
They were good. And when you talk about faith, the Abrahamic traditions, right? We would kind of talk it out, like, what's our common, the Torah, the law, and things like that. And so my interest grew from there, from those dialogues. But I would say it might have been a negative. And I say that because when you're hearing so many different religions, you start to question your own faith for a moment. That kind of sounds right. You start
Very
to reason through
overwhelming.
things.
Yeah.
And so, you might have a Muslim talking to you, telling you Old Testament things and then telling you about Jesus. That's a different Jesus that you grew up listening to.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
That's not the Jesus you heard in confirmation class. And so you start to question things, and I did. I would bring it up with my dad. I would bring it up with my pastor, and it was an ongoing conversation. But it reached to a point where, I had all these. I was in my room. I was just studying all the different texts, and I prayed. I prayed, God, I just want to know who you are. And I found myself reading all through the Gospels. I got to the end of Gospel John, and that's where Jesus is having that conversation with Peter. Do you love me? And at that moment, it felt like I was in Peter's position for a moment.
Wow.
And I prayed about it, and it felt like Jesus is kind of saying this. I never left. I was always there. And you get to the end of it where Jesus says that you're going to go down a road where you don't want to go. And that was that realization that God has been prepping me, putting through those different conversations, hearing those different dialogues for a purpose of, coming close to Him, rediscovering what faith looks like. What does it mean to follow Jesus?
Yeah.
And I prayed on it, and I said at that moment, I think this is it. I think I got to stop everything and go down this path. And so
So that was in while you were in community college?
Yeah. I did take some time off from college, and that's because of just financial reasons.
Sure.
I was not eligible for financial aid and things like that, and so I was paying out of pocket, and there was a couple of semesters I just couldn't do it. So I had to work full-time and save money and do it that way. And so, yeah, I took some time off, and that's when faith was really, it was I go to work, I come back, start reading scripture, start reading some other texts.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I think I've heard some stories similar in that you get into this moment where, especially in this pluralistic world that we live in, and not that I'm a pluralist, but there are a plurality of options out there. That's what Charles Taylor talks about in The Secular Age, that we now live in this age where there are just all these options presented to people. And it's actually that experience of being confronted with all those options that is overwhelming, and is very scary. But then I'm convinced that the Holy Spirit's strong enough to see us through those moments, and that the Word of God is powerful enough to meet us and all of our questions and all of our worries, and to convince us of who God is through the Scriptures, and through relationships like talking with your dad, talking with your pastor. Those were already established relationships, right?
Yep. And from there, I decided to tell my pastor about this is what's been going on, and he questioned me well. He's like, where is this coming from? Tell me more. And that was great too.
Yeah.
Because it was an opportunity for me to reaffirm what God was telling me through Scripture, and so he said, all right, let's see what we can do here. And college was that time. I had taken a break from college at that time, and so he said, okay, maybe consider doing a pre-sem program. And so that's when I got into conversation with Concordia, New York.
Sure.
And so that's when I started the pre-sem program there. And that was, I think, 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, 2018. And joined the pre-sem program there. Wonderful time. It was amazing being at Concordia, New York. Just the faculty, theology department. Also, because I had this IT background, I was looking for something similar that I can do. But I eventually ended up going into business. And so I ended up taking some business classes. So I was taking theology and then business law, and
Nice.
taking all these extra things that I can do while in undergrad. And so got to go through that, and then I graduated in 2020, height of COVID. My last semester was online, and when you're trying to do your capstone, dissertation stuff, and the library is not accessible.
Right.
Yeah.
At that time, it was difficult, but God got me through, and graduated, and then started here at the seminary.
And that was also during the time where Concordia, New York was getting close to beginning to wrap things up. So that was also, did it close the year after?
Yeah, it closed a year after
The year
I
after
graduated.
you graduated.
So
Sure.
I was, myself and a few other students, we were the last pre-sem students to graduate.
Right.
And you knew that you knew a bit of that going into your final semester, or did you find out after you graduated?
We found out later on.
Yeah.
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 At that time, we thought, somehow we'll get through it. All the colleges were trying their best during COVID to work through those challenges. And well, I was hopeful.
Yeah.
Personally, I was hopeful that Concordia Bronxville would continue. And
Dr. Nunes is a great friend, and when you were applying, I remember him speaking highly of you, and that goes a long way. And I think I know that he respects you greatly. So he was a formative influence. Who else were formative influences while you were at Concordia, New York?
So the chair of the theology department, Dr. Joshua Holman.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. He's a
he-
great
High
guy.
school classmate of mine.
Yeah, he was the guy for me.
Yeah.
He formed me a lot, corrected me on a lot of things, a lot of theology, but he was very patient and very kind and loving. Part of the pre-sem program was an internship, and so it's not a vicarage, but it's you had to do some sort of internship as part of the program, and so I was interning at his congregation in Queens. And so that was an opportunity for me to leave my home congregation and experience another congregation in New York.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see. I got to work under him, and I really enjoyed my time learning under his supervision. And then there was other professors as well. There was Pastor Paul Sauer. He was a pastor in the Bronx. And then there was Dr. Dean Taylor.
Yeah.
He was teaching there as well, and so
Now district president.
yes,
Yep.
yeah, and so all these pastors were just so formative during my time there. And then there were many other professors there as well. There was Dr. Galshut. She taught history there, and she was great, and of course Dr. Nunez, and the whole faculty at Concordia, New York, were just so loving and caring, and they really looked out for you, and that formed me, and prepared me well to come to the seminary.
That's fantastic. I want to go back to your home pastor, because you mentioned him early on, but I want to ask a little bit more about him, what his experience was like as an American and as a pastor in the Missouri Synod, because I think some of his experiences and his own life probably impacted you as you were thinking through all this. Who am I? What am I supposed to do in this life? So tell us a little bit about your home pastor.
Yeah. So my home pastor is Reverend Dr. Johnson Rathnasamy. He is Indian. He comes from the southern part of India. He became part of the Lutheran Church here in the Missouri Synod in the early 2000s. And so he took a call to work in Queens, Emmanuel Whitestone. And during that time, he was focused on building a multi-ethnic ministry.
Yeah.
And so what that looked like was, we have our English service, but can we start services in other languages? And, whatever languages that were spoken in the community. And so initially began with his native language, which is different from mine. He speaks Tamil, and it began with his sort of him starting the ministry there, and then it began with Hindi, which we came into the church, and so there was Hindi-speaking groups, and then it was Korean, Chinese, particularly Taiwanese,
Sure.
and many others, and so it just continued, and so it was just sort of his efforts to try something new, and what it eventually becoming, our church motto is that we are a mosaic ministry.
Yeah.
And so we are a mosaic, different pieces, different people from all over the world that make up the body of Christ. And so, we proudly say that we are a mosaic ministry in the heart of New York. So
That's awesome. I saw one time, and Johnson's super creative, so I saw one time, and I think maybe you were even part of this, I don't remember, but there was a video that he put together, and I think it was for Pentecost, but it was out on YouTube, and it was, I don't remember if it was the Creed or the Lord's Prayer, but it was all these different languages saying small parts of it, and it's really cool that in our Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, we have a really creative ministry that is reaching people from literally all around the world in one neighborhood, which is kind of part of the story of Queens. But
yeah.
Well, kind of in line with that, you're talking about your community college experience and the challenges, the plurality of it. But now, and I just figured this out, or heard from you the other day, that you do field work, or at least work in parts of North St. Louis. One, which is one of the most challenging neighborhoods that St. Louis has to offer. That's just the reality of it. But wonderful, beautiful ministry taking place there, wonderful kids and youth that you're a part of. But St. Louis is different than New York, for sure. How much of that kind of community college experience, the experience you had in your home congregation with all the different cultures, backgrounds, ethnicities, how much do you think that's prepared you for what you're currently doing, and how do you see that kind of also developing further on as your career as a pastor?
Yeah, the work that I do in North City, when I got connected with that congregation, it just felt familiar. You know, some of the challenges that we see in northern part of the city, I saw that in New York City too.
Sure.
And there's a specific culture. There's, whatever we see on like social media and things like that. What's cool right now. I got to see that in northern part of the city, and you see the same struggles. It may look different. From my particular background, I saw a lot of immigrants, but I think the struggle is still the same in regards to finding jobs, education, just lack of resources. These are all things that I was familiar with, and so I felt at home when I started working there. But at the same time, for thinking from my perspective, it's we, as the body of Christ, we are called to be in those places. We are called to be the gospel. And so how can we embody what Christ has given to us, his gifts, and be a part of that in the community?
Yeah.
And so when you're interacting with people, you're not coming from a perspective like, you're just like, we relate because we know certain things.
Yeah.
No, it is you are embodying and being the gospel. You are the first encounter of Christ that people are receiving. And so that for me, I felt, that I was able to do that in that circumstance, in that situation, just being around in the community, just continuing to do what I knew best.
Yeah. No, I think that's great, and it's one of these things where like I often get asked, 'cause I'm from the north part of St. Louis, I'm not from Walnut Park.
Yeah.
Nor am I from Spanish Lake, but again, those neighborhoods have gone around different transformations. Well, I guess growing up, Walnut Park was always Walnut Park. But where I grew up in Ferguson looks different now than when it did when I was a kid. But I used to always get asked about like diversity, and I'd have classmates who had passion for stuff like that. And they'd be like, do you think a white guy can go into a neighborhood like Walnut Park and be a pastor? And I'd always lift up John Schmicke, who's sainted now and who we deeply miss for sure, who I met as a youth playing basketball for my home congregation. We played against Bethlehem. We never won, but anyway. But it's one of these things where it's like, well, look at John. Like, now he's had to work, and he's had to be committed, and he has to do a lot of stuff. And it's just a matter of what are you willing to do, and who are you willing to be for the sake of doing ministry in that community. And the point is that you're not white, but you're also clearly, you're not black, and especially like a black American. And so you're different, and that difference is visible. And then also you're from a city, but like I said, North St. Louis is different than anywhere else in St. Louis, which is it's a different own kind of being, which again, it's also where I feel home. It's funny. I talk to my friends about this. I struggle in Clayton sometimes, not because it's dangerous, not because I ever feel like I'm getting profiled, but it's too quiet and too safe. If that's a weird thing to say, but it is too quiet and too safe, and it makes me uneasy every once in a while, to where sometimes like the sirens, the cars, I don't want to say the shootings, but like the city noise is more comfortable. But you're not from there. Some things are familiar, but you've found a way to be there, to be the body of Christ, to represent that to the people you're doing ministry to, and I think you're probably doing it well. If you were going to explain it to somebody else of the things that have helped, but also things you've had to learn along the way, and maybe things you're continuing to learn, what are some of those things that have helped you and kind of that you're continuing to grow in ministry in a very challenging context? Yeah,
like you said, there is a familiarity, but at the same time, you're still learning.
Yeah,
The experiences that the people have, they're subjective to them. They've gone through something traumatic or whatever it is in their life, and you just go there and listen. And you just stand there and just be that calm presence. Yeah, like I mentioned, be the gospel, right? And a part of being the gospel, being part of, Christ's body is your presence is there, and they feel comfortable opening up and sharing those things with you, and just hearing them out. That already is that in some ways I found is very comforting to them, that there's somebody here just listening.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the work of being there is not only caring for them, with all the physical things, but just listening to them and just learning from their experience. And sometimes you're connecting the dots that maybe this experience is shared with someone else, and okay, this makes sense. But from a faith perspective, you're especially in this position as a seminarian, you're just learning and growing with the people, and you're creating that relationship with them. Like you mentioned, I'm not, white or black. I'm Indian, and so some of the reactions that I got from them was, we don't know what to do with you. You're just so different. You're unique, and some of them thought I was not Indian. I was something else, but at the same time, once they got to know me, once I got to know them, we built that family relationship. Yeah. And so I've seen some of the kids that I work with, some of their families, I've seen them become protective over me. That this is our guy, and he genuinely cares for us. And so, initially that there might be, some, you might be uncomfortable initially with it, but once you get to build that relationship, your family for life. And I love that. And I cherish that the most.
No, that's awesome. I want to ask a little bit about your own experience. You're a humble guy, and you're not going around campus kind of putting your problems or your challenges out there. But for the sake of viewers and listeners who either might themselves be an immigrant to America and thinking about seminary, or one of our more traditional background students that want to know how can they be supportive to immigrant students, tell us a little bit about some of the challenges, or maybe even just the particularities, the uniquenesses of being an immigrant to the United States and coming through seminary. What are some of the things that you've had to navigate? What have you had to think about? And how have you found your way through those things?
So, growing up in an immigrant household, there's a expectation that parents put on you that you got to do well, in school and in life, and just be around to take care of the family things. And so, personally, it's a very heavy family focused, sort of environment. Whatever you were doing is for the family. And so one of the challenges that came up for me was, since I'm doing a residential program, that I would have to move. And so I remember those conversations that were happening at home, that, I'm going to have to leave. What does that look like? In some cases, there was that feeling of, I might be neglecting my vocation of, taking care of my family. Yeah. And so how would I be able to do that? What would it look like being away? And so I remember, just talking with my dad about this, and he said, you know what, if God has called you to do this, then he will bring you through it. And so wow. It was sacrificial. It was difficult. At the same time, you get to see all the amazing work that God is doing. So even my presence not being there, it has been difficult on the family. I think vicarage was the most, because I couldn't spend the major holidays with them.
Sure, right.
And those are those intimate moments where you get to spend time with family, Thanksgiving, Christmas,
Yeah.
Easter, and I couldn't do that because of vicarage. But at the same time, you got to see, this is how God is working and doing things, and so very challenging for immigrants that are considering this. That conversation is going to happen, and so the challenge there is what does this new life look like? Maybe the immigrants are bringing their families over with them, bringing their whole family on campus is going to be an adjustment. Finances are the biggest question. Immigrants it is difficult financially to start out. It's a new country, new place. You're trying to understand how things work. Most likely you're renting a place. And so economically, what does this new life in ministry look like?
Yeah.
And if you have responsibility to take care of parents, either here in the States or maybe back at home in, one of the Eastern countries, that financially it's going to come up. And so you want to be aware of those challenges and kind of pray about it. And from my experience, once you get into ministry, just God opens up doors. Financially, God has blessed me along the way ever since Concordia New York days. I really am amazed and always in awe of how God does things and put things together. And I'm thankful of the seminary here that made it possible for all students to get that education and to not worry about the financial side as much as maybe some others have in the past.
Is education in general, is that a big topic? You and I have talked a little bit about that before. What is the thinking in the immigrant household or in your household where the conversation was education? What are you going to do with yourself? What were the particular challenges or conversations that came up around that?
Right. For immigrants, particularly my generation, either you're talking about what we like to call like the 1.5 or 2.0 generation. Either you came at a young age from a particular country, or you were born here, and your parents are first generation. There is an expectation that parents want you to do better than them. In many cases, they sacrificed a lot to come to this country. And so parents constantly remind the children that we want you to do better. And this is the land of opportunity. And if you don't take advantage of those opportunities, it comes into question about all the sacrifices made. And so there's a heavy emphasis, there's a pressure, I would say, on the kids to do more, to excel in, parts of education that provide much more income in the future. So, for example, STEM, any sort of science, technology, engineering, math, those are high-paying jobs. Right. And so parents will push their children to go into those fields. And what that means is once that education is completed, once they got in the job, it changes the trajectory of how families have been generationally. There's a big socioeconomic class change by this new generation. And so those are all good. But at the same time, it creates this pressure on the children to make that possible. And if you're not able to, it affects not only the immediate family, but how you are viewed in society even. And that's a different conversation. But those are some of the pressures there. And so for me to come to seminary, this was a good thing. That I'm continuing my education and I'm pressing forward and getting a master's or maybe in the future I might pursue some postgraduate work. That is something that I really appreciate. But it has been a struggle at the same time. I've felt that. So like I mentioned, I came here when I was a month old. But my sister, I have a younger sister, she's 8 years younger than me. She was born here. And so she would be the 2.0, and I think maybe she would probably say she would say that some of the pressures have been there as well. And we experienced that going to school, seeing other immigrant children. You just get to hang out with them. You have the usual conversations like, yeah, hey, my parents said this last night, all right, we got to do better, got to get better grades. And so you find that, that mutual community there. You want to do better. The relationships you form, the friendships you form with people are based off of that. You want to be surrounded by people that will help you get to that goal or that success or achieve that American dream. Having a better life.
Well, and it's like Luther says, to kind of bring some theology to this experience. Luther talks about tentatio, the struggles of life, and when he's talking about how do you become a theologian, how do you get formed to be a Christian? Prayer and meditation on the scriptures are his kind of first two things, but then the third part is this tentatio, this struggle, and it's through carrying these crosses like you've just talked about, where God shapes you, as in a crucible where you're being refined, and Luther would talk about how the devil made him a great theologian because of all the pressure that the devil was putting on him, and all these different pressures, and so that's part of why you are who you are. You're a great theologian and a great student. So that's helpful to think through. Certainly, pressures and some things that I didn't experience growing up.
Yeah, some of the challenges that I would think for immigrant students, I think of this in three areas. First is immigration itself. Mm-hmm. So when you come to this country, there is a legal process behind it, and you want to get a green card, permanent residency, eventually at least a citizenship. Right. So either if you're a 1.5 child, you're seeing a lot of things earlier than most people, going through that immigration process, sitting with a lawyer, or even a 2.0 that's born here but is witnessing their parents go through the struggle of getting their legal status here. And so instead of maybe going with their friends to a basketball game or joining some sport in school, they're going to the lawyer's office Saturday morning because that's the only day the parents got off from work. Wow. And so there's an aspect of maturing quickly and seeing a lot of things quickly. And even in some cases, you're interpreting. So if going to a lawyer is already intimidating, and then now you're the middle person translating all these things for your parents. Maybe some parents don't know English, and so you're the middle person trying to make sense of what's actually going on, and then you got to translate that over. And so that's a struggle. So first is immigration. Second, I see education, which I shared about, is just trying to do better. And third, I think of relationships. And you're constantly living with this dual identity. One is the culture that your parents represent, and one the culture that you're being raised up in. I think of it as like hats or a mask, right? When you go home, you put on a different hat. You speak a different language. You eat different foods. Even some ethical, moral understanding. So it's different than when you would go to school and you hear your friends talk. You think to yourself, yeah, my parents would never allow that or do that. This would not fly in my household. So you're trying to understand and try to make sense of living in these dual realities, same time going through those struggles, and eventually, you start to see, you have a unique identity here. Yeah, making sense of it, and faith, how big of a role faith plays when you come into church and you realize your identity in Christ, that even though you're struggling through this, you have that one identity in Christ, that you are a child of God, and no matter what's going on, this remains the same, and you find comfort in God's truth in that.
Well, in witnessing those processes, especially for somebody you love and care about, my sister-in-law is from Chennai, and her and Nigel, Dorothy's brother, they live in Pittsburgh now, and she's a PhD student. I think in dissertation phase she has to be. She could be done. I could be wrong. At Duquesne. Well, anyway, she was going through the citizenship process, and there was one night we were there a couple years ago, and she had flashcards of things that she was going to be tested on for the test. And well, I'll give Dorothy a pass that she didn't know many of them, but she moved to America when she was 13 from England, right? So she's not learning U.S. history. And I knew I would like to pretend that I would have passed that test, but the things that they ask, it's like, what does that have to do with being an American citizen? It's just so bizarre. And even beyond like amendments of the Constitution and things like that and laws, just the most random question. It's like, does anybody actually know the answer to that? But it's one of these things where, again, when you don't have to go through it, you can take it for granted. But again, watching my sister-in-law Percy go through it, it's just like, man. And for her, not that she doesn't like being Indian, but it's a lot harder to go visit somewhere if you only have an Indian passport versus an American passport. And that's, again, something else that I've only learned to deeply appreciate. We don't have the strongest passport in the world, but to deeply appreciate just going abroad. And like, if you're from India, you can't just get on a plane and visit America.
It's much more challenging. It's
and you can go visit India from America. You still have to apply for a visa, but the process for us, as opposed to the other side around, is so much less stringent. It's you just fill out a form, you send it in. You have to prove so much before you can do it, and then certain things you have to sign, and then guarantee that you're going to leave once you get there. It's so bizarre.
Partly what I heard is based on population, and so right now the current time to go to different places, the longest wait time, the queue, is for India and China. And so, India, 1.4 billion people. There's a lot of people that want to leave and explore the world, but it's just because there's such a high volume of people, the process takes a long time. And so,
well, for her as well, documentation is different. And so the province that she was from, being able to get certified documentation was challenging. And again, it's not to point fingers at any corruption or anything like that. It's just, again, when it's close to you, it's easy to ignore things and to have opinions about stuff when it's somebody else or when it's somewhere else. But when it's close to home, it just changes your perspective on it. And yeah, when you were talking about that middle person, that translator, just the struggle, you have to speak to a lawyer, and then you have to stand in front of somebody and prove that there's nothing nefarious going on. It's just such a deeper appreciation. And also when we were talking about the tentatio, I just Alan, as I get to know you better and hear more about your story and just think about how much you're going to be able to help just people in general, just because of the life experience you have. It's just such a, when things get rocky in people's lives, at some point you're going to be that steadying voice of helping them calm and look forward to and prepare for tomorrow. And I'm just excited to. The more and more I work for the seminary, it was like that when I was a student and with classmates, but the more and more I work here and get to see like the next guys going out, I get excited about what you guys are going to do for the sake of the gospel out in the church. It's going to be awesome.
I was just thinking about my pastor back at home. He I really, really, my heart goes out to all the pastors that are working in these unique communities. Like I mentioned about like with immigrants and with immigration, in some cases, pastors have to be a part. They're counseling them throughout the way, and in some cases, pastors have to be with them Either it's, facing an immigration judge or writing a letter here or advocating for them. I've seen it personally from my pastor back at home, how much he's cared for immigrants in that way. And my heart goes out to all the pastors that do that. It's a struggle. You're in, unsure waters. You don't know how to go about it. But at the same time, that's the care that we can do for, people in our congregations. This is a new thing, or it's going to grow more and more. And I encourage a lot of pastors to keep on going and care for those families. Having a pastor's presence there it's so helpful. It changes everything. All the anxiety or anxiousness that immigrant faces every day, talking to a pastor, coming to church, being surrounded by a caring, loving community, that is so helpful.
Well, in some ways, Alan, you're doing some of this, not serving as a pastor, but you're doing some of these kinds of things that the both of you were just talking about with this group that you and a friend of yours lead called Students in Urban and Multi-Ethnic Mission, which is a group for students here at the seminary. So tell us a little bit about some.
Yeah, so this is a student-led organization that we began. It was my first year at the seminary, height of COVID, but we wanted to start something new. At that time, we had other students as well, fourth year, and other students second and fourth year. And so we wanted to just build awareness about these ministry potentials, that some of the people that come to seminary, they may come from a different background, mostly a Midwest background. And if you want to explore a new ministry, this urban and multi-ethnic ministry, we wanted to create this environment where we can have dialogue and conversation, where students can get to know more about these opportunities and talk about a lot of social issues, struggles that congregations face.
Right.
And so we wanted to create that safe environment for them. And so we have these meetings. We do them once a month. It's usually the first Monday of the month. And we call in a lot of guest pastors and just people that are doing this urban and multi-ethnic ministry to share their thoughts, to share some of the struggles that they face, addressing some of the social issues that we go through, and how, from our Lutheran perspective, how can we engage with them and share Christ in the midst of those things. And so, like I mentioned, it's a student-led thing that we're trying our best to just build awareness, but encourage students that this could be a ministry for you. And so after talking with a lot of pastors that are working in these big cities, one of the big thing is we need pastors, we need church workers that have a heart for this and want to do something new and are willing to get challenged. Burnout is one of the things that comes up in the conversation.
Yeah.
But it is a very fulfilling ministry. From all that I've heard from pastors and other church workers talk about, it's a very fulfilling ministry. You get out of your comfort zone, but you get to see God work in so many unique ways. It's unstable, unpredictable, but that's the fun of it.
Yeah,
that's the fun of it.
An adventure. Well, and I think it's good for students to have this group where they can learn about urban and multi-ethnic mission. But what I've also seen is it is also a place where students of all ethnicities, you don't have to be non-white in order to go to it or something. It's for students of all ethnicities to be able to talk about some of these topics and even talk about how it impacts students' own experience at the seminary. So what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about seminary and maybe they have an immigrant background of some sort, 1.5, 2.0 generation, and they're saying, I'm not sure about going to Concordia Seminary. What will my experience be like? What have been some things that have been helpful as you've gone through the curriculum?
one of the things I'll say, and why I chose Concordia Seminary St. Louis, from my experience, has been a very safe place for you to be who you are, to be accepted that, yes, you come from a unique background, and God is going to use you through that. And I felt that every step from the admissions process to sitting in the classroom, talking with professors. Some of the professors that I talked to, they have some experience. Either they worked overseas in some sort of mission, or they worked in a diverse background, and they care. They will sit down with you and say, I may not come from your background, but I want to say to you that I am here for you, and I will walk through this whole process with you. And that's been a wonderful experience, having that support from everyone at the seminary. They will go through the whole process with you and encourage you along the way. I'll get those emails randomly from professors and from others that hang in there. It's a little bit left. Let's work on this together. And so that has been very encouraging.
That's awesome.
And outside of the seminary, there's a lot of pastors here in St. Louis that will care for you as well.
True.
They may not be immediately part of the seminary, but they will also reach out, and they will care for you in many ways. Some of the experiences that I've had with international students that come here for their graduate or postgraduate work is the congregations that they attend on Sundays. The pastors have been very supportive to them and their families, caring for them above and beyond, financial means or whatever it is. Congregations pour themselves into making sure that you feel comfortable and you're welcomed. And that's been great to see. And from my personal experience, I felt so welcomed coming onto this campus. It was a little, I was a little nervous at first, but just the loving warmth that I got from everyone, it's been amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That means a lot. We've not arrived, and we have more work to do, and yet I do. We didn't pay you to say that, and we didn't rehearse it ahead of time. And I do think that a lot of people care very deeply about making sure that we, not only just that we're welcoming to all students, but I think the faculty here genuinely believe that we must have the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod needs to have a ministerium from all nations so that we can take the gospel to all nations. That's even written in our strategic plan of the seminary. So it's supported all the way down, and I think there are a lot of people that are working hard on it. But I'm glad to hear that your experience has been that good, and I hope that that we continue to be this place where people from all nations are welcomed and are formed to go out for this kind of ministry that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I completely echo it. As another guy who doesn't necessarily look like the typical or historical CSL student, I got a lot of the same. I mean, again, different background, different cultures. Grew up in the LCMS, baptized in an LCMS congregation at a month and 8 days. But yeah, it's just a different context, and you get to school, and I'm trying to think of maybe a class where I wasn't the only not white guy. I'm not sure I can really think of any. But my point is that it was the same. Classmates were great, but same thing with faculty members. If there was something I was struggling with, I never felt like I can't talk to a professor. There's nobody here I can talk to about this. There were so many, not only just classmates, but faculty members. I could say, all right, this was said in class. It's something I always talk about, and it's funny because my mom is half German. I didn't have a grandma Schmidt, but but my grandma's maiden name was Ricci. It's a very German, Ricci, a very German name. And I grew up eating German potato salad on holidays that I think is disgusting. I should have leave it on the tree for me. But I didn't grow up there. I grew up in North St. Louis. So it's always kind of like, okay, like, yeah, I have a Grandma Schmidt, but I also have my granny, and my granny doesn't that side of my family doesn't work that way. So can you help me understand this? Help me wrap my mind around this. Is it really this polarizing, or is this kind of just a way of talking about it to help us contextualize how we can think more broader about things? And most of the time that was the case. It's like, well, we're using scenarios, but this is how you can apply it to different situations. And then again, if an invitation, when this comes up in class, you should raise some of these issues so that your classmates can hear it and also learn from it. And that's when I started to be like, oh, wow, this is, it takes on a different shape where it's like, no, we don't want you to be quiet and you don't have to ask this question one-on-one. This actually benefits everybody. Because like you said, a lot of guys came and continue to come from the Midwest. And I think for some of my classmates, I was probably like the first non-white person that they spent a significant amount of time and grew up to some extent around. And just again, we didn't pay Alan to say that. I wouldn't have paid him anyway. But just it's one of those things that I continuously try to encourage, because again, time has changed, life has changed, and in a different era, in a different generation, things would have been a little more different. And we're not perfect, but we are trying our best to be a place where all nations can land, not just to stop, get formed, and to leave. Something I love to tell all the young people that I invite for Vocatio is that if you're a Lutheran, the seminary isn't just a stopping ground for you. You belong to the church, so the seminary belongs to you. This is also your place. You own it in some respect. And so, if you see something that doesn't make sense, let us know. And maybe we can change it, maybe we can't. But if we don't know, we don't know. So
one thing I would encourage is while you're in St. Louis, I encourage you to go out to different churches.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Go out to different churches, ask pastors how you can get involved. And so, sometimes we get so stuck in talking about, theology all the time on campus. You're interacting with all those theologians.
Right.
But always be aware and make time to go out, leave the campus and go to a congregation, talk with a pastor, get involved. That's what I did, and that's how I got involved with the ministry in North St. Louis.
That's awesome.
And just continue to be amongst the people. Continue to do and be reminded every day what God has called you to do. Just every day I wake up, I'm reminded of how God's given the call. And so there's struggles there, but keep on doing it.
This has been fun. We could. I have more questions, and I feel like we could just keep going. We could do the. We're gonna have to put the rest of this episode on. We already have our platform, but I think we could talk for a long time. But we probably should move on to ripe for the picking.
Sure.
Or leave it on the tree. Do you have a first one?
I mean.
Well, while you're
think
pulling
these
up your phone.
None of these are repeaters. All three are fresh, and one is fresh thanks to Dale. He gave me one, a layup on my way in.
I don't know if I have fresh ones or not. My memory's so terrible. Ripe for the picking. I'll just cut right to the chase. Ripe for the picking, or leave it on the tree. Pumpkin pie.
Oh.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Ripe for the picking.
Yeah. Ripe for the picking.
All right.
Yeah, I like pumpkin pie.
I'm kind of torn. Most pumpkin pie is going to have cream in it, and so that's going to be a leave it on the tree for me. Some pumpkin pie does not, and if it's vegan pumpkin pie,
Okay.
I just got to take care of my body,
Fair.
man.
No,
Sorry.
listen. No, I'm not mad at you. It's just
I know.
it's
like,
already
I'm
vegan.
vegan.
Kind
No.
of.
I mean, no. If it's got dairy in it, it ain't vegan.
Yeah. No. Well, I definitely probably. So I'm gonna leave pumpkin pie on the tree, but only because
Texture issue?
sweet potato pie is so much better, and it's not even close.
Yeah.
Like
I think we've talked about this.
like. Don't get me wrong. If somebody puts a slice of pumpkin pie in front of me, I'm gonna eat it. And some people be like, "There's not that big of a difference between pumpkin pie and sweet potato pie," but one does taste better, and it's sweet potato pie. I just triggered so many people, I think.
I think
You
that
might
we've
wanna warm it
actually
up.
talked about this before, and I think that on a different episode, I might have said ripe for the picking for pumpkin pie now that I think about it.
Oh, look at
I
that.
don't mind it. I like the flavors, but
It is. I
I have
Just
to be
warm it up a little
particular.
bit. Just
Yeah, it's
put it
got
in
to
the
be warmed up,
microwave and-
right?
I just had this battle last night with Johnny because I was like, well, if you could pick one food, he said pumpkin pie. I was like, the answer is
Whoa.
no. But I was like, there will be a sweet potato pie.
Like,
He's
the one food in all the world.
no.
that
He
you
said
could eat?
other things.
Oh,
First he said my collard greens.
Or is this just for Thanksgiving?
Thanksgiving. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because I do all the cooking.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
You're the cook?
Yeah. He's like, here's the compromise. One pumpkin pie, one sweet potato pie. And I was like, ask your nanny. She might make you one. But my answer is no, bro. Like, no, it's going to be sweet potato if I make it. All right. Right for the pick and leave it on the tree. Soft pretzels with nacho cheese.
All
All right.
leave it on the tree.
Yes.
Leave it on the tree.
Yes.
Maybe if you get mustard,
Oh, okay.
maybe,
Good
So it's-
answer.
all
Good
right.
answer.
and it's not like
Like stone ground mustard, like really nice.
no spicy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Some spicy
yeah,
brown.
spicy mustard.
All right.
Yeah,
That's fair.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
I knew
of,
you wouldn't like nacho cheese.
No, the nacho cheese will leave it on the tree for me. I mean, there's nothing real in that. It's like made in a factory,
Yeah.
and there's just a million ingredients that you can't pronounce. No, it's like intergalactic ooze. Don't put that in your body, right? You know this about me,
Yeah, 100%.
right?
Yeah. Nothing
but-
surprising so far.
But I'm even going to go further out and say this might be one of those St. Louis things that I'm not that
You didn't
enamored
have to-
with.
you see, now you're starting to walk into dangerous
Oh
territory.
yeah.
that's
I'm going to
fine.
call it out.
All right.
I've had a lot of bad Gus's pretzels. They sell them for all these things here in St. Louis, and they're handing out Gus's pretzels, and I'm like, that can just stay in that. They're just
Disrespect.
yeah, man. Sorry to the Gus's pretzels fans,
That's all right.
but it's a leave it on the tree for me.
All right. Well, I mean, yeah, very right for the picker for me, with cheese and all. Listen, I don't mind the intergalactic goose. That's gonna lead into another right for the picking. Anyway, because it's gonna make me a superhero one day. When you see me flying around campus, you're gonna be like, I should have ate that nacho cheese.
Yuck. Ripe for the picking or leave it on the tree. Duck.
leave it right on the tree.
Leave it on the tree. You're not
No.
not a fan
No.
of duck meat.
No.
Okay.
I love duck. Yeah, I would. If duck was on the menu, that would probably be the thing that I would order.
Yeah. Always.
Probably, maybe even over lamb. I love lamb, but I really love duck.
Yeah. Duck is right for the picking for me. Like duck confit, like it's basically deep fried and
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah.
My only thing is I can't get over. So if it's like a duck breast, the fat has to be like completely rendered off of the skin.
Yeah.
But sometimes like it'll get served and it's still like a little white or a little chewy, and that's disgusting.
Yeah, that is disgusting.
But also, and I can't eat it like medium.
Oh, what's wrong with that?
It's a bird.
As long as the skin is done
I don't
right.
know. I'm the same. I'm the same way with pork though. I still can't eat pork medium, and I know that's like a thing now that people are like, oh, like, but I can't. It's just I don't want it dry, of course.
Yeah.
And I don't want my duck dry, but like I do want it cooked through. And I know it's not unsafe, but mentally it's unsafe, and I can't do it.
Oh no, leave it juicy.
Anyway, all right. Right for the picking, leave it on the tree, departing from food, making up your own words. And now you understand the ooze, goos, or goo.
Yeah, right for the picking.
Right
Yeah.
for the picking.
Yeah.
I do it all the time. Like, yeah, I constantly work on making my vocabulary better,
Sure.
and because of the frustration, I'll just
Sometimes
make
you
a
gotta-
word and just go with it.
There you go.
You know, it's kind of becomes my. My friends say that I've Allenized it or just
Nice.
made it my own. Just
I don't
The
know
whole
that I've
system.
ever heard any Allenizations.
Yeah.
You're a very well spoken guy. I don't. But
try my best.
Yeah. Well, I would say that it's a leave it on the tree for me. Sometimes I play, and this morning I was putting on my stocking cap, and my son told me yesterday that it looked really goofy on me because it's his old Mandalorian stocking cap.
Oh, sure.
And so I put it on. I said, "Yeah, I got that Riz, yo," and he thought that was pretty
I
funny.
didn't like that at all.
Yeah, it didn't get the response from you that I thought it was going to get.
Oh,
I'm making fun of myself because
Yeah.
I
No.
know that I'm, as somebody once said about me, I'm really white.
that's all right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody has to be. Like, it's just, anyway.
I can't pull it off, man. I'm not that cool.
I came up with this one today because on a sports podcast, somebody who is well-spoken, highly intelligent, kept saying something was antiquated, and like he wanted to say like a rule was antiquated,
Yeah.
but he kept saying antiquated because earlier he said it was dated, and then I think he wanted to say it was antiquated and merge them together, and I'm a big fan of that because even when it's Allenized,
I do that all the time.
And then if you read Isaiah in Hebrew, he does it all the time as well. There's what is it? Is a hapax legomena? Is that like a word that's only used once?
I
in the
mean,
text?
I'm not sure that I'm willing to say that Isaiah's just making up words that didn't exist.
Okay, well,
I guess
that's what it
what-
seems like when
that's-
you're a Hebrew student trying to read them, and you're like, "What word is this?" And
What
you
word
try
is
to like
this?
looking
Yeah,
it
that's
up
fair.
in a lexicon is nearly impossible.
Yep.
And then the lexicon says, this word isn't found in other ancient literature. Isaiah maybe made it up.
Well, it
Used 10
often
times in the
is.
Bible, just used 3 times in the whole book. It's-
All Isaiah.
It's done often by poets.
Right.
And you know who else is really good with this is John Nunes.
Yes.
He is
Yes.
masterful in his use of language, and I think I've even heard him talk about this, that sometimes you just got to coin a word.
Sometimes there isn't a word that is available in our current dictionary to do what you want to be done. And you
I'm not a
you
poet.
gotta make it up. I'm not a poet, but I do. It has to be natural. Like you can't be like thinking in your room like, all right, I want to make words that don't currently exist. What would this word mean? It has to like be bang, which is probably how Riz started, but which. Like anyway,
I don't know
Should have
what-
been like I'm like drippy right now. That would have been better. Anyway,
I don't know what
expressing
any of those
emotions,
words
right?
mean.
Riz
just
is
like-
charisma.
Oh,
See, so yeah.
Okay.
Now you know.
I don't have Riz or drip or any of the above. Yeah.
Okay.
I
I was gonna big you up. Like you're drippy when you like have on like a suit and a tie. I like when you have a suit and a tie, you do look sharp. But anyway,
That's about once a year these days.
fair. It's overrated.
Whew. Man, I might. I'm coming up short.
I got
on
another
my
one.
third one. All right,
Okay.
yeah.
All
Save
right.
me, save me.
And this is thanks to Dale from behind the scene. Ripe for the picking or leave it on the tree, like super sour candy, like the Warhead candy.
Yeah, right for the picking.
All right.
Yeah, I love it, especially during Halloween. You know,
yeah.
When you
you
get
got
so
so
many.
many different varieties, and
Yeah.
they put on like the sour, scary, type of candy. Oh yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I would maybe eat a piece,
Sure.
and
So many,
especially if somebody like.
manufactured ingredients.
There are a lot of manufactured ingredients, so like that's
Crazy
what I'm
dyes.
saying. I'm
It's part of the experience.
I'm gonna put like a piece of that in my mouth for a little bit, and then I might spit it back out.
All right.
But I would only do that if somebody was like putting me up to it. Like if our team was like, oh, this is funny, Ben's got to eat this. Or if my kid was like, you got to try this, I'd try it. Otherwise, it's 100% leave it on the tree for me. I'm not really a candy eater. Dark chocolate, maybe.
I'm going to put this back in the back of my brain that, like, if we just dare you to do stuff.
Yeah, I'll always do it.
Yeah, cool. I mean, it's right for me. I think we've probably talked about this several times on this podcast. I might be addicted to candy. And no further explanation. I did this year though. I did not do my normal father tax on my kids and their Halloween candy.
And they probably got a lot this year because they're getting bigger and they know how to collect it.
But Halloween was cold though.
Yeah,
I don't think they stayed out for too long. I mean, they did well, but
it's crazy. 30 minutes. I was like, I just set the candy out on the front of my sidewalk and was like, take it all.
And when
it's too cold to be out here.
I usually go with them and try to push them, but I had just started physical therapy on my knees. I was not fit to
be
walk
outside
around
in the cold.
No. Arthritis and that.
Well, speaking of challenging me to eat something.
Yeah. Well, you said I should bring some stuff and you would eat it. And so I ordered.
I'm excited.
Pork rinds from Amazon. I'm going to be honest. So I got.
These are like screaming Ben Haupt, made for Ben Haupt, like ultra bougie.
Yeah. I've never had this brand before.
I suppose they're not vegan.
But I knew, I didn't want to bring, ones you get from the gas station. Because they're not that great. But also, I'm trying to prove a point here. So I ordered these from Amazon. For my sake, I hope they're as good as they promise to be.
Is it 80 calories for one piece?
It doesn't say per piece. It says per ounce.
Okay.
Well, anyway. So I hope this is a good brand. I've never had it before, but they were expensive. So
is this just like sea salt pork rinds?
Not
or
this one.
what?
There is sea salt. You want to start with sea salt?
Oh, no, I'm good with whatever.
No, and it's pink Himalayan sea salt. By the way, if you're listening.
Himalayan sea salt.
Pink Himalayan sea salt.
No antibiotics
it's a
either.
gimmick. Just use regular
40% less fat? I mean, aren't we just talking this is just deep fried fat? Isn't that what a pork rind is?
No, it's skin. No, so there is a bag of cracklings. So this is just the skin. Cracklings typically have the fat, the skin fat on.
I'm learning a lot.
But this is just
All right.
And that's just regular, no seasoning pork rind. Alan? Yeah.
I think I'm good.
All right, sorry that we're eating in front of you. Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm good.
It's not going to kill you.
No.
All right.
Those are fantastic.
Well, look at that,
100%
everybody.
ripe for the picking.
See,
They have a nice.
There's a lot of crackling in the mic.
Kind of roasty.
Mm-hmm. Maybe that's how they get the fat off.
Yeah. All right. So this is what?
And barbecue.
Barbecue.
That is banging.
Barbecue.
That is good.
Oh, man. I'm seriously going to have to go get a bag of these. Ooh. Little spice there at the end. Catching me up with my barbecue flavoring that's going to make me sweat.
We'll have to eat fast. That way you don't start.
Leave it on the tree completely for
leave it on the tree.
pork rinds. Got it?
These are very good pork rinds, Alan. I'm sorry.
Salt and pepper.
Dale? Oh, all right.
Oh. Those are good too?
Are you sure you don't want one? All right. I'm one of those people that I don't like to eat in front of other people.
Nah, it's just leave it on the tree.
They kind of look like popcorn. What are those, like popcorn rounds, or even like those chips made of popcorn?
They're like those are rice, though,
Popcorners.
right? No.
Yeah.
Anyway.
What are they called?
Popcorners?
Popcorners. Sea salt and pepper is nice. I'm worried about this one.
It's not what you think.
Chili lime. It's going to make me sweat. 100%. How many did you get?
It was a variety pack.
Holy cow.
Yeah, artisanal. That's what I was looking for this earlier, and I didn't type in artisanal pork rinds when I went to order them. I just put in pork rinds.
I'm going to try another one of the chili lime because...
It doesn't taste like much, does it?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Wait, so all these have been pork rinds.
And these are cracklings.
And they just give you a little bag of cracklings?
And this is like the skin with the fat still attached. And see, this one was interesting to me because it's a pork rind, but the seasoning is maple bacon.
I'm gonna leave the chili lime on the tree.
They're not that great.
They're not that great. They need more chili and more lime.
Yeah.
All right.
No.
Oh, now this is like,
Yeah.
I'm a little scared.
There's no one of these probably has the same amount of calories as all of the ones we just ate.
Oh,
That one's weird. I didn't want to say it before you ate it because I wanted you to eat it, but that one was not good. I set you up a little bit. I could have gave you a warning, but I was like, I ate it blindly, and I was like, I want you to experience the same way.
they
I
were.
did.
Were they? Was yours soft in the middle?
That was not what I was looking for.
I bit into it and was like, oh, it's not crunchy. It's feels a little bit like those candies that they had a hard outside shell, but then there was like the juice inside. That's kind of what it was like. But I knew that the juice inside was pork fat.
Yeah, and the maple. I was worried about that maple bacon. That was a miss for me.
I mean,
The upside is
I'm so sorry that you all had to watch that, but
twice on this show.
am I sweating?
You're starting to.
Oh yeah.
Ben has passed on pork rinds, and my goal was to get him to like some. At least three.
I need another one of
these.
those barbecue ones
Yeah.
just to wash down that last thing that you gave me. I
That
was in all seriousness.
Yeah, it was very weird. All right, Alan. Before we wrap up the podcast, if you had one piece of advice for anybody who is considering church work, what would that one piece of advice be?
The one thing that I would say is just do. Just be the gospel. Just do it. I always think of Mark's gospel, just where Jesus tells the disciples, just follow me. It says immediately they left everything and went with him.
Wow.
And I always keep that in the back of my mind. Just do the gospel. Just try to share that with people. Try to share Christ with people. And by sharing, I mean by actually being that presence, being there, thinking in your mind, if Christ was here right now, what would he do? And just make that a part of how you live out the faith. That's the one advice I would give, is just keep on doing it. And if you're considering church work, any sort of church work, just this is part of it. It's the call of discipleship is you leave everything and you do it, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It's very tough. I just think of for Peter and his family dynamic, right? We see that in Scripture. And yet we see him preaching the first sermon in Acts, right? Preaching Christ raised from the dead. And there's an Indian song I'm thinking of. It's a Christian hymn, and the words go like, "You who have set out with Christ, the road is unpaved. It's a dirt road. But continue to hold on to that crucified hand. The road is unpaved, it's dirt." And so if you ever walked on an unpaved road, right, all the stones and all that, if you walk barefoot, it hurts, right? But think about the hand that's holding on to you. It's the same hand that Thomas put his finger in. It's that resurrected hand, right, that was crucified for you, that forgives you. And going down that road is tough, but he's holding on to you, and just do. And God will bless you abundantly. He will make your paths clear. Yeah, he's faithful. He'll do it.
So good. So good.
I love that. Well, Alan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us. I'm sorry that we ate and I didn't bring something that you would have liked to eat, but this was more for Ben than anything else, and it just happened. And thank you all for tuning in and listening or watching. As always, if you yourself are thinking about becoming a church worker, just do it. Fill out an RFI, reach out to us so we know who you are, and then be encouraged. Something, as you were talking about the call of Peter, to drop your nets. I know somebody who wrote a little pamphlet called Drop Your Nets. You could probably find it on CSL's website. Quick little 10-minute read, and maybe that'll encourage you to fill out the RFI and begin the process of becoming a servant for the church, where Jesus is going to walk alongside you, where we have faculty members who will help form you and brothers and sisters in Christ that will go through the process with you throughout your formation here at CSL. And if you know that you're not a church worker, but you sit in a congregation, you look across the pew and you think, man, this person should be a pastor, deaconess, or teacher someday, don't think. Make sure you tell them, because you could be that person that is that little influential push that gets them to just do it, to fill out the RFI and talk to us. Again, thank you all for tuning in with us, and subscribe, especially on the new page. Subscribe to the new page on YouTube, Concordia Sem Under the Fig Tree, because we've moved to a different YouTube page. And so, yeah, thank you for all your support, and we'll see you next time under the fig tree. Take care.